Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the EX342 Red Hat Certified Specialist in Linux Diagnostics and Troubleshooting exam. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button. Also, a reminder that these are my practice sessions for the exam. My exam's just under 3 weeks away, so I'm going through all of the posted objectives from Red Hat and trying to either explain the concept of the objective or do some exercises to practice whatever the objective says. And at the end of the video, hopefully I will feel pretty confident about whatever the topic is. And if not, I still have a few weeks to do some brushing up for the exam. That being said, these should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered authoritative training materials. I do try to have the information accurate because hopefully at this point in my preparation, I'll know what I'm doing, but understand that I'm learning right along with you. So I do not recommend using these for tutorials or any type of authoritative information. I put these out on the internet in hopes of those that are preparing for the exam. You might get some ideas of things to practice from how I do a practice session. But again, these are not authoritative sources of information. So continuing with the Understand and Employ General Methods of Troubleshooting set of objectives, we're going to look at consult documentation resources to aid in troubleshooting. So let's go into my terminal, and I have several little lab servers I've set up for things. So we'll go into server 2. All right, and the most ubiquitous resource of documentation are the man pages. So let's say that I'm needing to use SE Manage to work with some SE Linux contexts. SE Manage, and that will give me several pieces of information. Most notably out of man pages, I'm going to scroll to the end here, you will often see examples of running the command. And another thing that you will often see are other man pages to reference. For example, let's say that I specifically wanted to get some information about the semanage fcontext command. Even though the command is semanage space fcontext, the man page will often have a dash there, because otherwise man's going to think you want, multiple pages. So I can do man semanage fcontext. And that gives me some specific information about the command itself. And again, you'll get options, and here it actually shows some examples of what to do and what to do after with restorecon. Something to keep in mind: man pages are not designed to be super in-depth information. It's really kind of designed to be a quick reference, but it's something that will be available to you on the exam because you're working with Red Hat Enterprise Linux systems, and so whatever documentation is built into those you'll have available to you. But it's something that you will use basically everyday life as an administrator of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or really any Linux system, not just RHEL. So it's good to become familiar with them. There are different sections of man pages that you can use. I think man 5 is primarily concerned with configuration files. At one point I had memorized all 8 of the man pages. I don't think that is information necessarily need for this exam, but it might be something that I might find some time to review and kind of get back to the front of my head. You can also use info. Let's see if we have that for SE Manage. From what I understand, this was supposed to be kind of the new and improved man pages. It would have some text links and such in here that you could navigate to, and it was really going to be what people use for man pages. Some people might use info. I don't. I tend to use man just out of habit, but just be aware that that's another tool to use. Another documentation resource that I think sometimes people might forget is information that's in user share doc. So if I were to go into user share doc, you will see a directory for a lot of your different applications. And let's go into which, see what we have here. And within user share doc, you will often see readmes. You might see some other documentation. Here, let's see, there's an examples file. So let's see what's in that. And this is actually showing you some information about using which is kind of nice. No pun intended there. But I have found this particularly useful. If there's not a man page for something, documentation might be dumped into here. A lot of things will have sample configuration files, which can be quite useful. That brings me to another point of documentation that you will find useful. If I go into the Etsy directory, many of the configuration files are going to have some documentation built into the config file. And an example of this, let's take a look at the rsyslog configuration. I guess it gives you some information here. I know one that will, well, yeah, this will work. You see a lot of these things that are commented out. There will often be either like default values or examples of things that can be done within the configuration file. So this next command I'm going to show you is kind of a nifty thing. I was exposed to it during my training for this exam. I'm not sure how useful it would be on the exam itself because it's basically contacting Red Hat resources and documentation. But maybe you're on the actual job and you're at a console, so you don't have a GUI, you don't have like what I have here, SSH terminal session and a GUI browser to be able to look up stuff, but you have to do it in the console. This might be a useful thing, so we'll play with this a bit. I think the name of the package for this is Red Hat Support Tools, and let us DNF search Red Hat-support, or that's at least part of the name. We'll see if DNF search can help us. Yeah, Red Hat Support Tool. All right, so let's install this. I haven't done much practice with this tool, so we'll discover some stuff together, I'm sure. From what I gather, it's actually a way you can look at documentation from Red Hat's repository of docs. You can work with your support tickets and such, which is why I don't think it'll be something that I'll have to use on the exam because it basically requires internet access, best of my understanding. So let's look at RPM QL EQI, Red Hat Support Tool. QL's probably going to give me a little bit more information of what I'm wanting. This can be something useful as well. Let's say that I can't remember the exact command to use whatever package. And this is kind of case in point because I haven't really looked at this since the beginning of my training for this exam, and I was just looking at different documentation objects. I can do it this way. There probably is a specific RPM query I could do for this. Okay, so just Red Hat Support Tool. I'm basically looking for files, and something user bin is going to be something that we can just launch. So let's see what happens when we just launch Support Tool. Okay, so you're in kind of an environment here. That's kind of nifty. So Q to get help. We can list cases. Yeah, this actually is kind of a nifty thing. Let's see what we can do here. Well, there shouldn't be anything for list cases, but let's see what happens when I do it. Yeah, so I have to log in to Red Hat. Okay, so the login process, I had to put in my username and such. Then it asked me about saving some credentials, and ultimately I had to use a web browser to basically do an SSO or go to an SSO page to sign in. So that's another reason why I don't think this is going to be something that's on the exam, but I figure we can take a look around the tool for a bit. So let's see what happens now. If it asks me to, let's do list cases, it asks me to log in again. Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously I have no cases with Red Hat. I have just my developer subscription. So you're not, you're not entitled to support from Red Hat. Let's look at, let's do open case. Now, I'm obviously not going to complete this, but this will allow you, default product, sure. Yeah, this is kind of nifty. I'm going to do Q to exit that. So you can basically interact with Red Hat's portal from the command line, which I find quite nifty. It's not something I'm probably going to use much because obviously I'll just go to a web browser and do all this for cases. But if you're in some environment and all you have is just the console, this could be useful for this. You may be able to get attachment, maybe able to like upload attachments. The other thing that was going to be interesting with this is you can look at their knowledge base. Let's see what happens here. Of course, I don't know of, there's a search command. So let's say that we're wanting to look up iSCSI. And these are knowledge articles that are about iSCSI. Let's say we can't, let's choose number 5 here. And so this is basically the same as going to a particular knowledge base article. You can look at number 2, the issue. And so I'll bet if you were to actually go to the article, you're going to see this in Markdown for code and all that. So this is really kind of a nifty thing. Again, I mean, you're probably going to just use a web browser, but if you ever needed to get the documentation from the command line, this will be the way to do it. 5 shows you everything. Q seems to be the universal getting out of this, but I wanted to demonstrate that. But looking back at the objective, consult documentation resources, I guess another thing you could do, go back to the terminal, RPMQL, and we'll do the Red Hat. Let's do cronny or cronny D. Oh, and this shows you what you have in user share doc. Maybe this will be a way to remember, hey, I forget that user share doc is a thing. RPMQL lists all the files associated with the package, and that will show you where the user share doc is. I think between man pages, user share doc, and just general comments that are in configuration files, those will be your main resources. If you don't have, Dr. Google and such available to you, those will be your main resources for getting documentation to troubleshoot. And then if you happen to be in an environment that would make sense to use it, you have the Red Hat support tools available as well. So I think for the exam, I'm fairly knowledgeable in the common places that one would look to get documentation to help with troubleshooting. So if you found this video useful or enjoyable, make sure you do click like. I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.